The morning sun poured through the tall windows of Los Angeles International Airport, washing the arrivals hall in a warm, golden glow. Travelers hurried in every direction, dragging suitcases, answering phone calls, waving goodbye or hello, but in the middle of all that movement, one small moment stood still. The automatic doors slid open, and Keanu Reeves stepped inside with his beautiful wife at his side and their little daughter holding his hand, her tiny steps trying to match his. The family had just returned from a quiet, private vacation, one of those rare trips where Keanu finally got to be just a husband and father instead of a global superstar. He wore a simple black hoodie and jeans, blending in effortlessly with the crowd. His wife walked beside him in a white sweater and light blue jeans, her hair tied back casually, her face peaceful from the days of rest. Their daughter, no older than 6, wore a pink backpack shaped like a bunny, her eyes wide with excitement as she looked around the enormous airport. Cameras didn't catch them at first. It seemed for a moment the world allowed them privacy. Keanu squeezed his daughter's hand gently and whispered something that made her giggle. His wife glanced at them both and smiled, the kind of smile only someone deeply in love could have. But peace is rare at airports, especially when one of the most recognizable faces on the planet is walking through it. A group of travelers suddenly recognized him. One gasped, another pointed, and within seconds, phones were being pulled out. A quiet wave of excitement rolled through the hall. Voices whispered his name with admiration. Keanu, always humble, gave a small smile and a nod, shielding his daughter behind him so she wouldn't feel overwhelmed. Security guards noticed the crowd forming and came closer, not to confront, but to help manage the growing attention. Keanu thanked them softly, maintaining his calm, respectful demeanor. His wife placed a hand on his arm, reassurance exchanging between them wordlessly. They continued walking toward immigration, moving with a slow grace through the spreading crowd. The flashing lights of cameras began to sparkle like tiny stars, as more fans realized who had just arrived. Despite the attention, the family stayed close together, Keanu's hand on his daughter, his wife walking protectively on the other side. They looked like a small unit, tightly bonded, unshakable. Through all this, the little girl remained cheerful, fascinated by the world buzzing around her. She tugged at Keanu's sleeve and pointed at a huge airplane through the window. Keanu bent down to her level, whispering a gentle explanation about how airplanes work. His wife glanced down at them with pride, thinking how naturally he fit the role of a father, calm, loving, patient. In that moment, everything felt perfect. It felt normal, peaceful. None of them noticed the small group of officers watching them from a distance. None of them sensed As the family moved closer to the immigration gates, the airport's atmosphere began to shift in a subtle but unmistakable way. It was the kind of change only someone intuitive like Keanu would notice. The soft hum of rolling suitcases, the chatter of families returning home, and the echo of announcements overhead continued as normal. Yet there was something underneath the noise. Something uneasy. Keanu's steps slowed just a little. He lifted his gaze and scanned the terminal. Years of working on action films had sharpened his instincts, giving him a natural sensitivity to unusual environments. Something wasn't right. He could feel the weight of attention not from fans this time, but from people in uniform. A pair of airport security officers were standing near the far end of the corridor. They weren't pretending to be casual. They were watching closely. Their conversation paused the moment. Keanu made eye contact with them, and one of them subtly spoke into a radio clipped to his vest. Keanu gently shifted his daughter to his other side, placing himself more firmly between her and the officers. His wife noticed the small change in his energy. She glanced around and saw what he had seen too. A quiet, worried crease appeared on her forehead. "You okay?" she murmured softly. "Yeah," Keanu replied, though he wasn't convinced. "Just something feels off." They continued walking, but now each step felt heavier. The polished airport floor reflected shapes and shadows of people moving around them. Yet, Keanu kept noticing the same silhouettes appearing again, as if certain individuals were pacing them. At a nearby checkpoint, a TSA officer subtly pointed in their direction while another officer nodded. Keanu saw it. His wife saw it. They exchanged a silent look, a communication built through years of understanding. Stay calm. Stay together. Their daughter, blissfully unaware of the adult tension, skipped lightly beside them, humming a tune she learned on the vacation. She swung her bunny-shaped backpack, her tiny world still filled with joy and innocence. As the family approached the immigration area, Keanu expected to be greeted with the usual routine: passport scans, polite smiles, maybe a few excited whispers from the officers. Instead, he saw a group of officials gathering near the entrance, their eyes fixed on him like they had been waiting specifically for this moment. One officer whispered something to another. Another checked a tablet repeatedly. A supervisor stood with his arms crossed, expression unreadable. Their focus wasn't on managing the crowd. It wasn't on the other passengers. It was on him. Keanu's wife tightened her hold on his daughter's hand, her voice barely above a breath. "Why are they looking at us like that?" "I don't know," Keanu answered quietly. "But whatever it is, we'll handle it. Just stay close." The closer they got, the more the air felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. Conversations around them. The family was only a few steps away from the immigration counters when everything changed. At first, it happened quietly. A single officer stepped out of position and moved toward their path. Then another, and another. Within seconds, 4 uniformed officers formed a subtle but deliberate formation, blocking the passageway ahead. It wasn't aggressive, but it was unmistakably intentional, like a door closing without a sound. Passengers behind the family slowed down, unsure of whether to keep walking or stop. Some whispered, others stared, but everyone understood something unusual was happening. Keanu stopped immediately, his instincts sharpening like a blade. His wife froze beside him, grip tightening around their daughter's small hand. The little girl blinked up at the officers, confused but not yet frightened. One of the officers, a tall man with a firm but emotionless expression, stepped forward. "Mr. Reeves," he said, voice low but clear, "we need you and your family to come with us." The tone wasn't a request. It wasn't friendly either. It was controlled, rehearsed, like they had practiced this moment. Keanu raised an eyebrow, maintaining his composure. "Is something wrong?" The officer didn't answer immediately. Instead, he exchanged a quick look with his partner, a look that said, "Don't reveal too much here." Then he turned back to Keanu. "There's a mandatory security review. Please step aside." A mandatory review sounded like a lie dressed in official words. Keanu knew it. His wife knew it. Even some passengers nearby seemed to sense the tension. A second officer spoke, his voice more clipped, less patient. "This won't take long, sir. We just need you to cooperate." Keanu lowered himself slightly, making sure his daughter felt protected. Her tiny fingers wrapped around his hand, clinging nervously now. "It's okay," he whispered to her. "Everything's fine." But he wasn't sure. The officers began to guide them toward a side hallway, one that led away from the main crowd, a corridor used for VIPs, or for situations like this. Phones came out again. Passengers recorded the scene from behind pillars and over shoulders. The sound of shutters clicking filled the air. A ripple of whispers spread through the hall. "Why are they stopping him? Is he in trouble? That's Keanu Reeves. What's happening?" Keanu kept his posture calm but alert. His wife stayed close, her eyes darting between the officers and her husband, silently pleading for answers. Another officer stepped in behind them, effectively cutting off any chance of turning back. It wasn't aggressive, more like a silent message. This is happening. No escape. The family followed the officers down the private corridor, their footsteps echoing on the cold floor. The bright openness of the arrivals hall disappeared behind them, replaced by narrow walls and dimmer lights. Keanu glanced at his wife, offering a reassuring nod even though word behind his own eyes. "We'll get—" The hallway the officers led them into was narrow, quiet, and far too cold. The bright noise of the airport faded behind them, replaced by a heavy silence that made every step feel louder than it should. Keanu walked slightly ahead, his wife on one side, their daughter holding tightly to her hand. The little girl wasn't humming anymore. Her bunny backpack bounced nervously with each step. Keanu could feel his wife's worry without even looking. Her breathing was shallow, her steps fast but hesitant, as if she wanted the situation to be over before it had even begun. She leaned in close and whispered, "Why are they doing this? What's happening?" "I don't know," Keanu whispered back, lowering his voice so their daughter wouldn't hear. "But stay calm. Don't show fear." His wife nodded, but her eyes betrayed her anxiety. They finally reached a frosted glass door guarded by another officer. Without a word, he unlocked it and motioned them inside. The room was small, white walls, a long metal table, security screens on the far side, and a row of chairs that looked more like interrogation seats than anything meant for travelers. A surveillance camera blinked slowly from the corner. Keanu's wife instinctively pulled their daughter close, kneeling in front of her. "Sweetheart, it's okay," she said softly, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's face. "We're just in a special room for a little bit." The little girl's eyes started to shimmer. "Did we do something wrong?" Keanu's heart cracked hearing that. He crouched beside them, placing a steady hand on his daughter's shoulder. "No, you did nothing wrong," he said gently. "We're just going to answer a few questions, and then we'll go home, I promise." But he couldn't promise what he didn't know, and the uncertainty gnawed at him. The officers entered the room one by one, but their presence didn't feel routine. They stood against the walls like barriers, watching closely, communicating with silent gestures. The tension was suffocating. His wife looked up at him again, worry tightening her features. "Why are they treating us like criminals?" she whispered, voice cracking. Keanu placed a calming hand on her back. "We stick together. Whatever this is, we face it as a family." Just then the door opened again. A different officer stepped inside, older, more serious, clearly in charge. He held a tablet and folder under his arm. Without acknowledging the family directly, he placed the folder on the table and opened it. Keanu rose slowly, protective instincts on full alert. "Can someone please explain what's going on?" The officer didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled out a sheet of paper and slid it across the table toward Keanu. His wife stood as well, her hand trembling slightly. "Is this about our travel documents? We can clear anything." The officer finally spoke, his voice calm but cold. "There is a serious issue concerning Mr. Reeves's identity and recent international movements." The officer in charge took a slow breath, as if preparing to deliver news he already knew would shake the room. He tapped the folder once with 2 fingers, then looked directly at Keanu, cold, unreadable, almost calculating. "Mr. Reeves," he began, "your passport has been flagged. According to our system, you are connected to a high-priority international investigation." Keanu blinked, stunned. "I'm sorry, what?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "There must be some mistake." His wife stepped forward instinctively, her voice trembling but protective. "My husband has done nothing wrong. We just came back from a family trip. Why are you saying these things?" The officer didn't flinch. Instead, he turned the tablet toward them. A red alert notification glowed on the screen along with a message. "Identity match. Under active surveillance." Keanu stared at the screen, confusion twisting into disbelief. "I've never been involved in anything criminal," he said firmly. "I've never even been close to something like this." Another officer spoke from behind, his tone sharper and less patient. "Sir, the system linked your passport number and biometric data to suspicious activities in 3 different countries over the last month." His wife's breath caught. "That's impossible. He was with us the entire time." Keanu nodded. "I haven't traveled anywhere without my family during this trip. You can check airline logs, hotel records, anything you want." The lead officer raised a hand to silence the room. "We are conducting a deeper investigation. Until we determine the truth, we are required to proceed with protocol." "Protocol?" Keanu repeated. "What protocol involves detaining a man in front of his wife and child based on a system error?" The little girl looked between the adults, fear creeping into her small face. "Daddy, are they mad at you?" That question shattered something inside Keanu. He knelt beside her again, holding her shoulders gently. "No, sweetheart, nobody is mad at me. This is just a misunderstanding." But even as he said it, he felt the tension thickening. The officers weren't treating this like a misunderstanding. They were treating it like a threat. His wife crouched down with them, placing one protective arm around their daughter while reaching for Keanu's hand with the other. Her voice cracked softly. "We didn't do anything. We were together every day. Why don't they believe us?" Keanu rose slowly, anger simmering beneath the surface, though he kept his voice controlled. "Then check everything. Check every record. I have nothing to hide." The officer nodded once. "We will, but until we verify your identity fully." He motioned toward the door behind him. Two more officers entered. The message was clear. They weren't leaving this room as a family, not yet. The air inside the security room felt heavier now, as if every breath the family took was being measured, analyzed, and judged. The officers stood like statues, forming a silent wall between the family and freedom. Keanu could feel the pressure tightening around him from all sides, but what hurt the most was the sight of his wife's trembling hands and his daughter's frightened eyes. He stepped forward, trying to maintain control. "Listen," he said firmly. "I am fully cooperating. I've answered your questions. I've shown you my documents. But you're scaring my family. This is not how you handle an innocent traveler." One of the younger officers folded his arms, his tone colder than the room itself. "You'll speak when we ask you to speak, sir." Keanu's eyes narrowed, a flash of anger slipping through his calm exterior. "I'm speaking now because my daughter is terrified," he said, voice deepening. "Show some respect." The officer scoffed under his breath and muttered something like "celebrities," just loud enough to be heard. Keanu's wife stiffened, holding their daughter tighter. "You have no right to talk to him like that," she said sharply, her protective instincts overriding her fear. The same officer stepped forward as if challenging her. "Ma'am, this is a federal investigation. Control your tone." Keanu's anger snapped. He moved between the officer and his wife instantly, his protective side taking over. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. "Don't talk to my wife like that." The room shifted. Tension rose like a sudden wave, and the officers reacted immediately. Three of them moved closer, hands hovering near their belts, not drawing weapons but close enough to make the threat clear. His daughter began to cry softly, burying her face into her mother's chest. "Mommy, I want to go home." Her small, trembling voice broke Keanu's heart. His wife stroked her hair gently. "It's okay, baby, it's okay." But she was shaking herself. The lead officer raised a hand, signaling the others to pause. "Enough," he said firmly. "Everyone calm down." Accusing me of, "It's impossible. Check the logs from our hotel. Check the airline manifest. Check everything." "We will," the lead officer replied. "But until then, we need to treat you according to protocol." "Information. You are now being taken into custody until further verification," his wife gasped. "What? No! You can't take him away. He hasn't done anything." Keanu felt his pulse spike, but he stayed steady, lowering himself toward his daughter one more time. "Sweetheart," he whispered, touching her cheek gently. "I need you to be brave, okay? Just stay with Mommy." "No," she cried, grabbing his jacket. "Don't go!" Two officers stepped forward. The Rue. Keanu stood tall, ready to face whatever came next. Anger, fear, confusion all boiling inside. But one thing was clear. They weren't just questioning him anymore. They were about to arrest him. The moment the two officers stepped toward Keanu, the air in the room snapped like a pulled wire. His wife instinctively moved in front of him, shielding him even though she knew she couldn't stop what was coming. Their daughter clung to Keanu's leg, her tiny fingers gripping his jeans with desperate strength. "Please," his wife pleaded, voice shaking but fierce. "You can't take him. There must be another way. Talk to us. Check the records. Do anything except this." The lead officer didn't flinch. "Ma'am, step aside. We have orders." Keanu gently pulled his wife to the side, whispering to her. "It's okay. Don't put yourself in danger." "No, it's not okay," she said, tears gathering in her eyes. "They're treating you like a criminal." He cupped her cheek with one steady hand. "I'll fix this, I promise." But before he could say another word, the younger officer, the same one who had spoken disrespectfully earlier, grabbed Keanu's arm with unnecessary force. "Turn around, hands behind your back." Keanu resisted, Not aggressively, but on instinct. "Hey, don't grab me like that, I'm cooperating." "Then cooperate faster," the officer snapped. His wife stepped forward again. "Stop, he said he's cooperating." Another officer blocked her path, holding up a hand. "Ma'am, please stay back." Their daughter screamed, her tiny voice cracking. "Daddy, Daddy, don't go, don't take my daddy." Keanu's heart shattered. He bent down quickly, pulling his daughter into a tight embrace. Her small arms wrapped around his neck, her face pressed into his shoulder, shaking with sobs. "It's okay, Angel," he whispered, holding her as if trying to protect her from the entire world. "I'm right here. I'm not leaving you forever. I'll be back." Her tears soaked into his shirt. "Promise? Promise, Daddy?" He swallowed hard. "I promise." The officers were growing impatient. The lead officer sighed heavily. "Reeves, we have to proceed." Keanu kissed his daughter's forehead one last time and gently placed her into her mother's arms. His wife held the child close, tears streaming down her face, her voice breaking with fear and fury. "Please, please don't take him. Our daughter is terrified. Just let us stay together, please." But the officers didn't look moved. "Proceed. Let's get this over with," he said quietly. The cuffs clicked around his wrists, cold metal tightening against his skin. Cameras from outside the room caught glimpses through the small window. Airport passengers who had been following the drama started recording from the hallway. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Down the corridor. "Keanu!" For a moment, the world went still. Keanu looked over his shoulder, eyes locking onto hers. "I'll be back, I swear to you." Then they pulled him away, out of the room, down the corridor, away from the woman he loved and the daughter calling his name. The arrest was no longer private. It was public, chaotic, and heartbreaking, and nothing would ever be the same again. The hallway outside the interrogation room was colder, brighter, and painfully loud. Every sound, the clack of boots, the radio static, the distant airport announcements, felt like sharp needles driving into the quiet grief of Keanu's family. Two officers escorted Keanu forward, one on each side, their grip firm but not cruel. Still, the sight of him in handcuffs was enough to shatter anyone watching. His wife stumbled out of the room behind them, holding their daughter, who was crying uncontrollably into her mother's shoulder. "Please," she cried out, breathless. "Let me stay with him. He didn't do anything, Keanu twisted his head as much as the officers allowed, trying to see them. "Stay with her," he told his wife, voice trembling at the edges despite his strength. "Protect her. Everything will be okay." But his wife wasn't listening calmly anymore. She was fighting the reality unfolding before her. "No, I'm coming with you. You can't just take him away without letting us talk, without giving us answers." She tried to move closer, but an officer blocked her. "Ma'am, step back. You can't follow him past this point." Their daughter reached her tiny hand over her mother's shoulder, reaching out for her father. "Daddy, Daddy, wait, don't go." That voice, that small, trembling voice, it nearly made Keanu collapse. He stopped walking, despite the officer's attempts to keep moving. "Just give me one more moment," he said, his tone a mix of pleading and restrained anger. The lead officer hesitated. Protocol said no, but the humanity in Keanu's eyes made him pause. "Make it quick." Keanu nodded and turned as much as his restraints allowed. His wife walked, tears streamed down her face, blurring the corridor into streaks of light. She whispered, voice breaking, "This isn't fair. You're innocent. Why won't they listen?" Keanu leaned down as far as he could with the cuffs. "I know, but you have to be strong for her. She needs you." The little girl lifted her tear-soaked face. "Come home with us, Daddy, please." Keanu's throat tightened painfully. "I will," he whispered. "Daddy will come home no matter what." It wasn't a promise to comfort her. It was a vow, a fire burning behind the fear. But the officers tugged at him again. "Time's up." His wife clung to him for one last second, fingers trembling as they touched his arm. "Don't let them break you," she whispered fiercely. "We believe you. We're waiting for you." The officers pulled him away. His wife cried out, reaching her hand toward him. "Keanu!" His daughter screamed again. "Daddy!" But this time he couldn't turn around. He was led down the hall, the sound of their voices echoing behind him, haunted and heartbreaking. Cameras flashed from the far end as bystanders recorded him being escorted toward the police vehicle waiting outside. His family disappeared behind the closing doors of the restricted area, and Keanu walked forward alone into whatever darkness awaited him. Keanu sat in the small interview room, his wife beside him, their daughter asleep in her lap, exhausted from the long hours of fear she didn't fully understand. The cold fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a constant reminder that they were still inside the airport security complex. Across from them sat two senior federal investigators, Agent Collins and Agent Ramirez, their expressions calmer now, no longer sharp with suspicion. Keanu rubbed a hand over his face. He had been patient for hours, cooperative, respectful. But even he could feel a storm rising inside. His wife squeezed his hand gently, grounding him. "It's almost over," she whispered, but even she didn't fully believe that. Agent Collins leaned forward, placing a thick folder on the table. "Mr. Reeves, we owe you an explanation." Keanu lifted his eyes, steady but tired. "Yes, I think we've earned one." Ramirez opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photos, documents, and a printed report. He turned one page around, a grainy image of a man stepping off a plane. The resemblance was shockingly close. Same build, same hairstyle, same coat style. A nearly perfect look-alike. "This man," Collins said, tapping the photo, "is an international fugitive wanted for weapons trafficking and 2 major cybercrimes. 3 days ago, he used your identity to book a private flight and crossed into U.S. airspace." Keanu's wife inhaled sharply. "Someone used his name?" "Yes," Collins said. "And because the forged documents were nearly flawless, every federal alert system flagged Keanu Reeves as a high-risk suspect the moment you scanned your passports." Keanu leaned back, stunned. "So we were arrested because someone pretending to be me committed crimes?" "Exactly," Ramirez replied. "And because the case is international, the alert couldn't be cleared without proper verification. That's why it took so long." His daughter shifted in her sleep, pressing closer to her mother. Keanu looked at her small face, peaceful, unaware, and felt a heat in his chest. "My daughter was terrified," he said quietly. "My wife was treated like a suspect, and all for a mistake I didn't make." Collins nodded, guilt heavy in his voice. "We understand, and we are deeply sorry for the distress caused, but there's more." Keanu raised an eyebrow. "More?" Ramirez pushed forward another document, a financial trail showing large transfers, all using a forged version of Keanu's signature. "The imposter has been tracking your public movements for months, studying everything from your travel habits to your security patterns. This wasn't random, it was planned." Keanu's jaw tightened. His wife stared at the page, her eyes darkening with fear. "So, we were targeted?" "Yes," Ramirez said simply. For a moment, the room fell silent. The hum of the lights, the distant echo of airport announcements, the soft breaths of their sleeping child. Everything felt strangely louder. Finally, Collins stood. "Mr. Reeves." The sliding doors of the airport security wing opened, and for the first time in hours, Keanu Reeves stepped back into the public world. Cameras flashed instantly. Reporters who had been waiting outside lunged forward, shouting questions, microphones stretching toward him like metal vines. His wife lifted their sleepy daughter higher on her shoulder, shielding the child from the sudden chaos. Keanu's security team, who had finally been allowed to reunite with him, formed a tight circle around the family. "We'll create a path," one of them whispered. Keanu nodded, his expression controlled but undeniably shaken. The weight of what he had just learned, someone impersonating him, tracking him, using his identity for crimes, pressed down on him like a shadow he couldn't shake off. As they moved through the crowd, a reporter shouted, "Keanu, is it true you were arrested for federal crimes?" He paused, just for a moment. His wife touched his arm gently, silently asking if he was sure. Keanu turned toward the reporters, his calm voice steady. I was wrongfully detained because someone is using my identity, he said. My family was put through something no innocent family should face. But we're safe. And that's what matters. Flash after flash exploded. The crowd buzzed. But Keanu didn't say more. He didn't owe the world an explanation. Not now, not when his family had barely recovered. He turned, guided his wife and daughter through the final set of glass doors, and stepped out into the cool American evening. Waiting outside was a black federal SUV. Agent Ramirez stood beside it, hands clasped behind his back. "Mr. Reeves," he said softly as they approached. "There's an update." Keanu exchanged a quick look with his wife. "Already?" Ramirez nodded. "While you were giving your statement, the imposter tried to access a private hangar at another airport. He failed, but it means he knows we're on to him, and he may escalate." Keanu's wife tightened her hold on their daughter. "What does that mean for us?" she asked. Ramirez took a breath. "It means we're placing your family under temporary protection, just until we locate him." Keanu studied the agent's face. No fear, but seriousness carved into every feature. He appreciated the honesty. "And what about the people who caused this mess?" Keanu asked. "The ones who jumped to conclusions?" "We're conducting an internal review," Ramirez replied. "Your case will change the way we verify high-alert detainees. You won't be the last celebrity targeted by identity crimes, but hopefully, you'll be the last one treated this way." Keanu nodded, though part of him was still simmering. It would take time, for him, for his wife, for their daughter, to forget the fear of being surrounded by armed officers. But there was strength growing too, something fierce and protective. He opened the SUV door, motioning for his family to enter. His wife paused, looking at him with soft, determined eyes.